let's talk Rashford, because I want to get your view on what Jules just said, but also, obviously he's had injuries, and I think everybody likes Rashford because of the way he talks, because of his personality, because, of all the stuff he does off the pitch.
Yeah, of course.
Put that all to one side. But if Marcus Rashford were here, and he would tell you that he hasn't performed to his level or to his wages. I don't think there's any question about it.
Sure.
And he hasn't done it for a long time.
Problem is, Gab, there's been an industrial scale PR operation which in recent days which tells you that Marcus Rashford hasn't performed, but it's everybody else's fault apart from his, because he's not being coached, the players aren't good enough, he's been playing with injuries and all this nonsense. I think Rashford needs to take...
Sorry. When people, right? When you say the PR operation...
You say that all the time.
What?
You always explain that...
No.
His camp
I actually wasn't going to go there.
Everyone. Oh, right. Sorry, I thought that's what you were going to say.
On these briefings, right? When people say, well, Mark, it's not Marcus's fault, the players around him aren't good enough. Are you tempted? Because what I would do is say, excuse me, PR man, which players around him aren't good enough? Is it Cristiano Ronaldo who's not good enough? Is it Bruno Fernandes who's not good enough? Is it Mason Greenwood who's not good enough? No. Who are these players who are rubbish where Marcus Rashford has to carry the team and he's struggling to do that?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it focuses on the lack of coaching. But I think...
The lack of coaching, what? From the previous manager? The guy everybody loved?
Yeah, but he wasn't a good coach, and neither were his coaches. But I think, let's just get back to the point of Rashford. I think that Rashford has underperformed for quite a long time now, both for club and for country. It's not just a United thing, for England as well. And I'm just a bit sick of hearing that there's so many mitigating factors. Well, sometimes you just have to, the player has to focus on himself and be better at what he does. And, he's done a lot of great stuff off the pitch. I think that has kind of encroached on his game now, and I don't think he's spent enough time focusing on his football, because if he had, I don't think he'd be in this situation right now where his form was at a nosedive. And we saw his performance against Wolves last week. That was horrible to watch. Both his performance and his reaction on the bench. He looked bereft. He looked shot to pieces. Now, I don't think what's Rashford now 24. I think that he's been in the team for 6 years now, and I don't think he's progressed as he should have done. If he'd have played for Pep Guardiola at Man City, I think we'd be seeing Marcus Rashford as a world beater right now. I think he'd have been coached to a different level. I think he'd have been a much better team player. I think the problem United have got is that Rashford and a few others, I think Mason Greenwood is in danger of becoming like this as well, are individual players that aren't team players. I don't quite know what Rashford offers anymore. And I think that getting back to the Elanga situation, I think Rangnick has done that for two reasons. First of all, to reward Elanga for his performances in training and in brief substitute appearances, but also to make a point to Rashford and to Sancho, this is what I need from my players. I want a work ethic, I want a desire, I want a commitment, I want you to chase lost causes, I want you to do everything that Elanga does that you've stopped doing. Now, Marcus Rashford, what we're in now, we're in January. I think that he's got a real struggle in his hands to make the World Cup squad this year. And people might be surprised at that because it's Marcus Rashford and, he always gets in the squad. Gareth Southgate has made a point throughout his England career of not picking players that don't play for the clubs, or not picking players who stop performing. Marcus Rashford is in both those categories right now. Yes, he scored last night, he came, and that might be the start of things. Who knows? It might be the kickstart his return to form again, but I don't know if it will be. But this is a massive year for Marcus Rashford, for the club, for country, and also his contract expires at the end of next season. Now, United have got another option on that, a year's option, so it will take him to 2024. But if you're Man United, do you just blindly give Marcus Rashford a new contract because it's Marcus Rashford, or you think, actually, we need this guy to show us that he can deliver more than he is doing, because why should we just give him a big new contract on the basis of the last 18 months, 2 years?
Rashford, the last 5 seasons, has played 50-plus games a season, which I think is crazy.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
And for me, I know he didn't start the season because of the shoulder injury and everything, but I think there was a burnout there, even in the pipeline before. And I do think that having a break, which in a way was a good thing with the injury and the surgery and all of that, but to come back to full fitness after your body took so long of a break, after the battering that you gave it for 5 seasons in a row where you played far too many games for such a young player, I think that's why maybe there's still a lot of work to be done there for him to be fully fit. He doesn't look fully fit to me. He doesn't look like he can play 90 minutes at high intensity, for example.
We've seen this happen with, and if you go back, and this is a fun exercise you can do on Wikipedia, pick 10 of the greatest players who you think are the 10 greatest players in the world right now, and I think you'll find many of them had a serious dip after 3, 4, 5 years in the first team. Now, obviously, he came along very early. He played a ton of games. There are a lot of reasons for it. I think it is something, as Mark said, that needs to be addressed. And I think if I'm United, again, Mark makes a great point with this contract. The reality is the PR blow to losing Rashford, even if not good Rashford, right? If Rashford becomes another one of those guys who, you know, it comes through the system at United, is good for a while, and then moves on, and then does something somewhere else, that would really be a hammer blow. So I think one of the priorities, okay, obviously after the new manager, one of the priorities is to let's figure this guy out. Let's figure out, you know, what we want to do, because we have to make a call. We're going to have to make a call pretty soon about this. By the way, did you notice? I think Mark has a weak spot for Pep Guardiola, because that's the second time you said, if this player had Pep Guardiola as his coach, it's the second time.
Look at Phil Foden.
I don't disagree.
Mark,
you're 100% right. I agree with you 100%.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.